The world you see around you is not a collection of solid objects and fixed truths, but a reflection of a specific mental frequency that most people spend their entire lives failing to tune. To master the art of wealth, you must first become a student of the dark corridors of your own mind, entering a phase the ancient alchemists called Nigredo. This is the stage of blackness, the necessary rot before the rebirth, where the leaden weight of your current limitations is heated in the crucible of absolute self-honesty until it dissolves. Most financial advice begins with the external, the spreadsheets, the market trends, the side hustles, but true mind alchemy understands that these are merely symptoms of an internal architecture. If you carry a poverty-stricken blueprint in your subconscious, no amount of external capital will ever stick to you. You are essentially a leaky vessel trying to hold liquid gold. To fix the leak, we must descend into the psychological basement and dismantle the constructs that have kept you playing a small, safe, and ultimately losing game. This deconstruction begins with the recognition of your shadow. In the pursuit of wealth, the shadow is often composed of the parts of yourself you have been taught to suppress. Your raw ambition, your hunger for power, and your healthy desire for dominance in your field. Society masks these as vices to keep the collective manageable, labeling them as greed or arrogance. However, the mind alchemist recognizes that these are the very engines of creation. When you ignore these primal drivers, they don't disappear. They simply sabotage you from the dark, manifesting as imposter syndrome or a subconscious fear that you don't deserve to be at the top of the food chain. Integrating the shadow means looking directly at your desire for financial freedom and admitting, without apology, that you seek to transcend the common struggle. You are giving yourself permission to move from the role of the spectator to the role of the architect. As we strip away the layers of social conditioning, we encounter the most persistent ghost in the machine, the myth of scarcity. This is the foundational lie of the modern world, the idea that there is a finite pie and your slice must come at someone else's expense. Research into cognitive biases shows that the human brain is evolutionarily hardwired for loss aversion, a survival mechanism that served our ancestors when calories were scarce but acts as a terminal illness in a digital, infinite leverage economy. To undergo Nigredo is to realize that the market is not a physical place with limited seats, but a psychic space that expands based on the value you are capable of projecting. When you believe in scarcity, your brain's reticular activating system literally blinds you to opportunities that are standing right in front of you. You see walls where there are doors. By burning away this scarcity bias, you shift your perception from a defensive posture to an offensive one, realizing that money is not earned through labor, but attracted through the alignment of your mental state with the needs of reality. The process of blackening also requires a radical purge of your current environment and inputs. We live in an era of digital gluttony, where the mind is constantly fed a diet of low-resolution information, outrage, and trivialities. This is the gray noise that prevents the alchemy from taking place. You cannot forge a high-value mind while consuming low-value content. Think of your attention as the primary raw material of your alchemy. If the material is contaminated with the trivial opinions of the masses, the final product will be brittle and worthless. This phase demands a period of intellectual isolation, a dark academic retreat where you sever ties with the median mindset. This is not just about unfollowing distracting accounts. It is about killing the part of you that craves the approval of people who are not going where you are going. It is a lonely process, a cold descent into the void of your own potential. But it is in this silence that the first sparks of genuine, original thought begin to flicker. Consider the concept of mental entropy. Left to its own devices, The mind moves toward disorder and chaos. Most people operate in a state of constant mental drift, pushed by the winds of economic trends and social pressure. The alchemist, however, applies the heat of focused will to counteract this entropy. You must identify the leaden thoughts, those recurring mental loops that tell you that wealth is for others, that you lack the pedigree, or that the timing is wrong. In the laboratory of the mind, these are impurities. We do not negotiate with them, we transmute them. We take the leaden thought of, "I don't have enough capital," and melt it down to the golden realization that capital follows courage and clarity. Research into neuroplasticity confirms that we can literally rewire the neural pathways of our brains through consistent, high-intensity mental rehearsal. You are not just thinking about money, you are physically changing the hardware of your brain to become a magnet for it. Furthermore, we must address the psychological attachment to the worker identity. From the moment you entered the school system, you were trained to be a high-functioning component in someone else's machine. You were taught that your value is tied to your time and your obedience. This is the heaviest weight of all in the Nigredo stage. To break this, you must undergo a form of ego death. The person you are today, the one who trades hours for dollars, the one who waits for instructions, the one who fears the unknown, must die so that the alchemist can be born. This is often a painful transition because it involves a loss of the security that the mediocre life provides. But that security is an illusion, a velvet cage that prevents you from seeing the vast landscapes of wealth that exist outside the bars. You are trading the certainty of a small life for the infinite possibility of a grand one. Finally, as the blackness of Nigredo reaches its peak, you find yourself in a state of total mental stillness. The distractions are gone, the false beliefs are incinerated, and the old identity is a pile of ash. You are now a blank slate, a vacuum ready to be filled with the refined principles of the next stage. You have realized that your past does not exist except as a set of stories you choose to tell yourself, and you are now free to write a new narrative. This is the moment of true power. When you no longer fear the loss of what you had, you are finally capable of gaining what you never dreamed possible. You have moved from being a victim of circumstance to being the sovereign of your own consciousness. The ground is cleared, the foundation is set, the lead has been dissolved. Now and only now are you ready to begin the process of purification and the cold, surgical construction of a financial empire that reflects the new, awakened clarity of your soul. The dissolution of the old self is complete, leaving behind a sterile, quiet landscape where the flickering heat of emotion is replaced by the cold, moonlight clarity of the Albedo phase. In the traditional great work, this is the whitening, the purification of the matter. For the mind alchemist, this is the transition from raw psychological deconstruction to the surgical application of logic, systems, and the refinement of intellectual capital. You have burned away the noise of the masses. Now you must cultivate the signal. Wealth in the modern era is no longer a game of physical stamina or sheer volume of labor. It is a game of high-fidelity information and the ability to process that information into superior decision-making. To reach this level of mastery, you must treat your mind as a laboratory of precision, where every input is vetted and every output is measured against the uncompromising laws of compounding and leverage. This is the stage where we stop trying to make money and start architecting the inevitability of its arrival through the purification of our cognitive filters. The first step in this refinement is the curation of an elite information diet. In a world drowning in data, the most valuable skill is not the ability to find information, but the discipline to ignore it. The Albedo mind is a fortress of selective ignorance. Research into cognitive load theory suggests that our brains have a finite capacity for complex decision-making each day. Every piece of trivial news, every notification, and every low-level social obligation acts as a contaminant in your mental crucible, draining the energy required for high-stakes synthesis. You must move from being a consumer to being a curator. This involves the dark academic pursuit of deep, foundational knowledge, mental models that have stood the test of time rather than the fleeting trends of the current quarter. You are looking for the Lindy effect in your learning, the idea that the longer a piece of information has been relevant, the longer it is likely to remain relevant. By focusing on timeless principles of human psychology, economic history, and systems design, you build a mental framework that is immune to market volatility. As the mind is purified of distractions, we must address the architecture of the second brain. No human mind, regardless of its brilliance, is optimized for the storage of every variable in a complex financial ecosystem. The alchemist uses external systems to offload the burden of memory, freeing the conscious mind for the higher-order task of creative synthesis. This is the logic of automation and documentation. You begin to see your life and your potential business as a series of interconnected flywheels. If a task can be codified into a repeatable process, it must be. If a decision can be guided by a predetermined algorithm of values, it should be. This is how you achieve decoupling, the separation of your personal presence from the generation of value. In the Albedo phase, you realize that true wealth is not the money itself, but the ownership of the systems that produce it. You are no longer the worker in the laboratory. You are the one who designed the experiment and left it to run on its own power. This period of refinement also demands a cold, surgical approach to social capital. You must audit your circle with the same ruthlessness that an alchemist audits the purity of their reagents. There is a psychological phenomenon known as social contagion, where the risk tolerance, vocabulary, and financial expectations of those around you literally seep into your subconscious. If your primary circle operates on a frequency of complaints, safety-seeking, and TGIF culture, they are acting as leaden weights on your ascent. The Albedo phase requires you to seek out high-value nodes, individuals who operate at a higher level of complexity and risk than you do. These are not just networking contacts. They are mirrors that reflect a higher version of reality back to you. By surrounding yourself with those who view $1 million as a rounding error rather than a lifetime goal, you recalibrate your baseline for what is possible. You are not being elitist. You are being precise. You are ensuring that the environment in which you operate does not introduce impurities into your refined mental state. Central to this purification is the mastery of the Stoic pivot. Most people are emotionally tethered to their financial outcomes. A bad day in the market or a failed venture feels like a personal indictment of their worth. The alchemist, having reached the Albedo stage, views these events with the detachment of a scientist observing a chemical reaction. A failure is simply a data point indicating that a specific variable was misaligned. By removing the ego from the equation, you gain the ability to pivot with a speed that the competition cannot match. This is the application of inversion thinking. Instead of asking how you can succeed, you constantly ask what would cause you to fail, and then you systematically remove those vulnerabilities. You become anti-fragile. You don't just survive volatility, you thrive on it because your refined logic allows you to see the structural weaknesses in the chaos that others miss. Furthermore, we must refine our understanding of leverage. In the leaden mindset, work is additive. 1 + 1 = 2. In the alchemical mindset, work is exponential. There are 4 primary levers in the modern world: labor, capital, code, and media. while the masses are still fighting for labor, the least scalable form of leverage. The refined mind focuses on the latter too. Code and media are the permissionless levers of the digital age. They work for you while you sleep, they don't ask for raises, and they replicate your value at zero marginal cost. To master the Albedo phase is to become obsessed with these force multipliers. You stop asking, "How can I do this?" and start asking, "What system, piece of software, or media asset can do this for me indefinitely?" This shift in logic is what allows a single individual to outproduce an entire department of laborers. It is the ultimate expression of mental clarity, realizing that your output is not a function of your effort, but a function of the leverage you control. As the Albedo phase nears its conclusion, your mind feels like a sharpened blade, cold, bright, and incredibly focused. You have purged the emotional static, built the external systems to handle the mundane, and identified the high leverage points where you will apply your focus. You are no longer reacting to the world. The world is beginning to react to you. You have achieved a state of cognitive sovereignty, where your thoughts are entirely your own, uninfluenced by the propaganda of the mediocre. You have the map, the tools, and the refined reagents. The lead has been turned into a pure white salt. Now, the final transformation awaits. You are ready to move from the quiet internal logic of the laboratory into the final stage of manifestation, where this purified potential is injected back into the world to create tangible, cascading wealth and a legacy that cannot be eroded by time. The cold, silvery moonlight of the Albedo phase now begins to flush with a deep, pulsing crimson. This is Rubedo, the reddening. In the great work, this is the final stage where the purified spirit and the refined logic are forced back into the material world to create the philosopher's stone, a substance that turns everything it touches into gold. For you, the mind alchemist, this is the transition from the internal laboratory to the external market. You are no longer just a thinker or a strategist. You are a force of nature. The stone is not a physical object, but your perfected personal brand and your ability to command reality through the synthesis of your unique value. This is the stage of absolute manifestation, where the intellectual capital you have refined becomes a dominant, liquid, and cascading empire. You have survived the blackening of your old self and the cooling of your logic. Now, you apply the heat of aggressive execution to solidify your legacy. The first principle of Rubedo is the synthesis of value. Most people fail to build true wealth because they offer the world a commodity, a skill or a product that 1,000 others can replicate. In the reddening phase, you move beyond the specialist and become the synthesist. You take the disparate threads of your deep learning, perhaps a combination of psychology, code, and high-level sales, and you weave them into a productized identity. This is the ultimate defensive moat. When you are the only person in the world who can solve a specific problem through your unique lens, you move out of the realm of competition and into the realm of monopoly. The market no longer dictates your price. You dictate the market's value. This is the birth of the philosopher's stone. Your mere presence in a niche transforms the stagnant energy of that niche into a high-margin revenue stream. You are not looking for a job or starting a business. You are manifesting a reality that did not exist before you arrived. To sustain this manifestation, you must master the aggressive leverage of the vital few. In the previous phases, you identified the levers of wealth. In Rubedo, you pull them with a singular, violent focus. This is the radical application of the Pareto Principle, where you recognize that of your explosive growth will come from of your actions. Most entrepreneurs drown in the thick of thin things, wasting their refined energy on administrative minutiae. The alchemist in the Rubedo stage delegates or deletes everything that does not contribute to the great work. Your day is no longer a schedule. It is a series of high-stakes surgical strikes. You focus only on the big dominoes, those rare actions that, once completed, make every other task easier or unnecessary. This requires a level of courage that the uninitiated cannot comprehend. The courage to say no to good opportunities so that you can say yes to the legendary ones. As your influence expands, you will encounter the friction of the material. The world is designed to resist change, and a mind that is actively making millions will naturally attract the resistance of the mediocre. In Rubedo, you utilize relentless iteration to overcome this friction. You do not wait for perfection. You launch your vision into the world in its rawest viable form and use the market's feedback as the final fire to temper your product. This is the scientific method applied to wealth. Every rejection, every failed campaign, and every market shift is fed back into your system to make your stone harder and more brilliant. You have moved beyond the fear of failure because you realize that failure is just the world's way of telling you which part of your lead hasn't turned into gold yet. You iterate with a speed that exhausts your competitors, turning your entire operation into a self-correcting organism that grows stronger under pressure. This leads to the realization of non-linear compounding. In the early stages of the alchemy, progress felt slow and agonizing, but in Rubedo, you hit the elbow of the curve. Because you have built systems that decouple your time from your income, and because you have refined your brand into a monopoly, your wealth begins to grow at a rate that defies conventional logic. This is the magic of the stone, where more effort starts yielding more result. You are no longer pushing a boulder up a hill. You have reached the summit, and the boulder is now gaining momentum on the other side. Your task in this stage is to manage the velocity. You must resist the urge to diversify too early or to return to the comfort of the laborer mindset. You stay the course, allowing the compounding effect to do the heavy lifting, while you remain the silent, watchful sovereign of the process. Shutterstock. The final transformation of Rubedo is the shift from wealth accumulation to legacy architecture. True mind. Alchemy is not just about the numbers in a bank account. It is about the transmutation of time. You are buying back your mortality. By creating assets that produce value indefinitely, you are ensuring that your influence outlasts your physical presence. This is the dark academic dream, the immortal library, the enduring institution, the family dynasty. You move from making money to shaping history. Your wealth becomes a tool for higher order creation, funding research, building platforms for others, or redesigning entire industries in your image. You have successfully taken the base lead of a common life and turned it into a golden existence that serves as a lighthouse for those still lost in the Nigredo of their own minds. As the reddening settles, you find that the world has become your laboratory. You are no longer a victim of the economy. You are an architect of it. You have achieved the ultimate goal, the ability to think a thought and see it manifest as material reality. The path was dark, the logic was cold, and the fire was intense, but the result is absolute. You are the alchemist. You have trained your mind, and in doing so, you have conquered the world of money. The work is finished, and yet, in the cycle of the great work, it is only the beginning of a new, higher spiral of creation. You have the stone. Now go and turn the world to gold. Thank you for watching.